when she said, I said, what do you want to sing at church? And she said, how about Don't Stop Me Now from Queen? I went, perfect. Perfect, because at the end of the month, it's a perfect way to start my talk and ask you all, what stops you from being joyful? I love the exuberance of seeing I forget, you're 19 now? 20?
19.
You're almost 20.
Almost 20.
Yeah, so just to see a 19-year-old or just about to head into her 20s up here saying, I'm having a ball, life is amazing, don't stop me now. But most of us aren't 19. As I'm looking around, some are younger, right? But do you remember that time in your life when you were like, oh my God, everything is mine to do? Yes, Dylan? I love your face. Your face just was like, yes, I totally remember that. So now I want to just ask that silly little question, what stops us from still being that? The answer is nothing, but in the relative world of form, what is it that you use, what do you think stops you from being joyful? This is our final Sunday of our joy theme. So just give it a moment and ask yourself, what stops you? Does money stop you? Does the relationship you're in stop you? Does your job stop you? Does your body stop you? Because I happen to know that, I think back to Christopher Reeves, and Christopher and I knew each other in 1990, I think it was. I was playing opposite his wife in a play at Williamstown, and he used to sit up in the back of the theater and watch our rehearsals. I was going to say our love scenes. And he'd always be back there, she was his girlfriend at the time. And he'd be sitting in rehearsals, and I remember one day I went to him and I went, it is so uncomfortable doing this love scene with her, with you standing back here. He went, good. Yeah. So when he had his accident, it was amazing to me to see the life that man lived. Nothing stopped him. It didn't matter what his body did to him or what his body showed up as. He moved right past it and just kept doing it, because I saw him years later when his wife was doing another play and I went to see it, and he was as bright and as smart and had more to offer, and it was just amazing. So I don't think any of us should ever relax into believing that there is something that is stopping us. We should take whatever that is and make sense out of it. Whatever you think it is, make spiritual sense out of it. And that's the thing we have to look at. What's the spiritual truth here? Not the physical truth. What's the spiritual truth? That's the work I do with Brad every day when I go to the hospital to see him. It's to talk about what's the spiritual truth here. This isn't it. You're not all of this. You're not all of these wires. You're not your body. You are the mind, the consciousness behind it all. So what's stopping you? And if something comes to mind, I'm going to read you what Ernest Holmes said. Everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. Everything necessary to the full and complete expression of the most boundless experience of joy is mine now. So there's a great affirmation, but it's only a group of words unless it actually means something to you. Is it mine now? When I'm looking at all of this, is joy mine now? Can I find joy no matter what? In anything? That's really our question today as we close this month out. Joseph Campbell said this, find a place inside where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. Find a place inside where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. But here's what I think. It's not just finding a place inside. It's inside, outside. It's all one thing. If we understand it's all God, it's all one thing, then find a place anywhere, inside, outside, connect to it, and that joy will burn away the pain. The title of my talk today is Rainbow Bridge. This is one of the places we went to on Lake Powell. Rainbow Bridge is a national monument, and I only found this out when we got there, that it was on Kevin's bucket list to go to. He's like, we got to go to Rainbow Bridge. It's a national monument. It's on my bucket list. I was like, when did this get on your bucket list? We have been together 30 years, and now I hear about this rainbow thing? And he's like, James, it's a national monument. I said, I know, there's like a lot of national monuments. So I wasn't like all excited to go see Rainbow Bridge till I got there. And it was pretty spectacular. This bridge, it's one of the world's largest natural bridges, 290 feet tall, and it spans 275 feet wide. The top of the bridge is 42 feet thick and 33 feet wide, and it's made from sandstone formed during the Triassic and Jurassic periods. So this has been around for a very long time, older than me. And I want to show you really how big it is. If you go to the next slide. There's Kevin and I. This one's me. That's Kevin. And there's the bridge. So when you show up at something like that, when you get to a place like this, or Lake Powell in general, your breath is taken away. Some people, it may make them feel very small. For me, as you can only imagine, it made me feel bigger. It did, because I suddenly identified with it. I saw how big I am. You know, when we talk about ourselves not being the drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop, I suddenly saw the breadth and depth of who and what I am. When we got to Lake Powell, before we got to Lake Powell, we had a little problem with a wheel on the truck, on the what's that called? Trailer. Thing that's bringing the boat with us. As you can tell, I'm quite a mechanic. But I did help fix the problem. And it took us a few hours, and we were fixing this problem, and I was thinking, what an auspicious way to begin our vacation, to be sitting in a parking lot behind a bank, eating sandwiches from a place across the street while we fixed a problem with the tire. But I believe wherever I am, there's something amazing to find out. And what I found out was, I am a mechanic. And there are pictures to prove it, because Corinne Draper took pictures of me fixing this tire. Not alone, of course. Really, it was Doug Draper that fixed it, and Kevin, and myself. But it was a team effort. But I was the one that found out how this thing fit on there, and then I was done. I was like, give me my sandwich. I did what I had to do. So we finally get there, and we put the houseboat in the water, and it was this magnificent trip. If you've never been to Lake Powell, you should put that on your bucket list, because just going down the waters and seeing these magnificent walls of sandstone was really beautiful. But it really made me, I got quiet in the beginning of this trip. I was like, wow, this is unfathomable to me that I could feel this expansion in my chest. And here's the other part of this trip. We were completely without distraction because there was no emails, no cell phone reception. You were literally just in nature, as part of nature. Now, I don't know if any of you are getting like rashes thinking of something like that, but I was really concerned about my husband being away from his cell phone and it not dinging every 2 seconds and checking his emails every 5 minutes. But we really did a good job. But here's what really got me. The first day, because there is a place on Lake Powell that if you take your boat and put it in the perfect position, there's a mountain somewhere behind us that gives us some kind of reception. So all of a sudden, there are 4 adults sitting in a little boat in the middle of the lake, all doing this. And I was like, the juxtaposition of this in my mind, the thought that here we are, all of this is around us, but we're reading emails. And we're texting the things. Now, we had to, but what I really got was, how do we balance these two worlds? I think we don't give nearly enough time to the Lake Powell world. I think we give way too much time to the texting and email world and our busy lives. So give some thought to that, because that's one of the biggest gifts I got from this. I have a little story to tell you, which really is the point of my whole trip, and I learned it on the water. So could you give me the next picture? So there's a picture of me and a picture of Corinne Draper. Now, we're on a paddleboard, in case you didn't know, because I didn't know what it was. But when I got on the paddleboard, it looks so easy, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like it's so easy? You just get up on the paddleboard and row. No. I got on the paddleboard first on my knees, which felt really easy. And I'm like, this is lovely. And Corrine said to me, you just stand, see what happens. I was like, oh, okay. Oh my God, it's unfat, and you're right back down on your knees. So I just thought, I don't see any reason why anyone ever needs to stand on these things. I'm perfectly confident and happy kneeling until I started feeling like I was in my old Catholic church. And so I'm paddling, and all of a sudden I was like, I think the problem is you think the paddleboard is something separate from you. Just like, here's where I got to start to cry, just like you sometimes think things in the world are separate from you. Sometimes you even think God is separate from you. Sometimes you think your power is separate from you. Sometimes you think health is separate from you. Finances are separate from you. Success is separate from you. And you're not willing to stand up into who you are. You just stay on your knees groveling in a world that is just waiting for you to accept it as part of you. It's who you are. Now, this is really all happening in my mind while I'm having a conversation with Corrine, who, by the way, of course, is standing and just paddling along. But in my mind, I'm having this dual conversation of like, get up. And every time I tried, it was like, oh, and back down. It was really humiliating. So we got to where we were going, and we got off the paddle boards, and we walked around and everything. And then we get back on the paddle boards, and during my little walk, I had decided that I wouldn't go back to the boat unless I was standing, which meant it could have been a long day. But I really did. I said, that's it. This is your whole concept of life, being one with everything and balanced between all of it. The balance between the Lake Powell and the texting. The balance between what life really is about and what sometimes we think life is only about. I feel like I'm standing on it. And so we got back on. I knelt down, pushed myself a little bit away, and stood up and locked my knees. And all of a sudden, I was perfectly stable. I was like, oh, I get it. And I unlocked him, and I went and I locked him again. I was like, oh. Because unlocking my knees is me trying to say, I'm going to navigate you. Locking them is, I'm one with you. Take me. Right? And I didn't go study this. I didn't have somebody teach me how to write. Nobody teaches you anything. They just throw you on it, and you do it. And so I then started paddling, and it was just so beautiful to be floating, yet feeling every now and then a boat would go by. We didn't have many boats at all, but there was one far out that some ripples came in, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa. And your instinct is to do this, and then you really go, and you'd have to lock them again. And I got it. I went, that's the mind. When your mind is locked on the truth, and you are refusing to grovel, you refuse to unbuckle, you refuse to go to that place where you are uncertain, unsure, then life flows along and you are in charge. And so we got these beautiful pictures. I never fell off. Kevin did. I had to say that because we got on together, anyway, back to this one. He said to me, I am not at church today, I'm in rehearsal, so please don't say anything too embarrassing. I haven't. That's not as embarrassing as I could say. So we get back in, and then the next day, Kevin and I went out on these boats, and don't you know, the minute I got on it, I couldn't get up again. That whole profound science of mind lecture I gave myself, I got up and locked my knees, and I'm like, whoa, back down to my knees. And I was like, okay, so this is what's called spiritual practice. That's why you have to practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall, Yvette? Practice. How do you get to the Christ consciousness? Practice, spiritual practice. So I was like, okay, so I just need to be free and willing to get up, lock my knees, and go. And I did. And Kevin, poor thing, he was going with me. And all of a sudden, and he was kneeling, he says, so how do you stand up? I said, you stand up and you lock your knees. And he went, okay. He stood up, locked his knees, and fell off. And I said, oh. I said, well, that's what I do. And so he said, well, don't you have to, he didn't say plie, don't you have to bend and, juggle? I said, try it. And he did it, and fell over. And I said, well, kneel for a while. I kneeled for a while before I actually got up. And then as I heard myself saying that, I'm like, I've spent a lot of my life kneeling. But there have been moments when I've stood up. I think it's time for me to lock my knees and stay standing and not kneel anymore in all areas of my life. And so Kevin finally got up and then, of course, decided he wanted to race me because that's our whole relationship. You put two type A males together and there you have it. And I was going to put the picture of him. If you see, I'm always behind him. I just stay behind. I'm like, I'm not racing. I'm having a beautiful time. I refuse to race you. He's like, it's because you can't beat me. I said, no, I could beat you. But I will not prove it. So he's always in front of me. And then he went in and I stayed. And I just stayed all by myself. And I went in the water. Now, most of you know my snorkeling stories, how that makes me crazy. But this time, I'm going, and all of a sudden, I'm out in the middle, and I thought to myself, I'm not wearing a life jacket. Aren't you? I should have had a life jacket on. Because if I ever fell off this, I'd have to swim back over there. And I was like, why are you thinking about catastrophe? You are in the most gorgeous place on earth, having a beautiful time, and you're going to catastrophe? And I thought to myself, that's what our minds do, to trip us up. We're having this great day. Did you ever have that happen? You're having this great thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, what if that happens? And yet our minds, everything we are using, our minds, every time we think, we're having some reaction. So I was like, cancel. I am not going to fall off this. And even if I did, this could hold me up. I'll kneel and paddle home, whatever. And I went to a different part of the rocks, and I got off, and I went swimming, which I don't usually do by myself in deep water, just in case, So, but I had a great time. And I had been looking for a heartstone, a heartstone. And I had to do one of those bodily function things by myself. So I was, doing it. And I looked to see where I was going, and it was right on a heartstone. Now, I can't make this stuff up. But it was, I should have brought it today. But it was I brought it home. But it was I'll pass it around. But it was a big heartstone, beautiful heartstone. And I was like, I probably wouldn't have looked there if I wasn't doing this. So that's why I jumped in the water. I took it into the water to clean it. And I have it at home. And I brought it back with me on the paddle board. And Kevin was like, oh my God, that is so gorgeous. I said, and I gave it to him. He said, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I said, wait till you hear how I found it. And I told him, he was like, James. I said, I washed it, I cleaned it. But, now I know this seems a little gross, this particular part of the story, but the truth is, we're one with everything. Life unfolds perfectly, and it is fluid. Life is fluid. I had to go there. So I tell you this story because Jeffrey's like, why? Why did you have to tell us that? Because something happened to me on Lake Powell, obviously. No, something did happen to me. I've been up here for over a year now, and for the last so many years in North Hollywood, saying that I'm not just a drop in the ocean, I'm the entire ocean in a drop. Probably last week, or the week I was on Lake Powell, I felt it more than I've ever felt it. I understood it more than I've ever understood it. I recognized that challenges are fine. Just be one with those challenges. Balance it. Balance the truth of what you know with what you are looking at, and you can stand, and you can have a beautiful journey no matter what's going on. You know, and when I came home, I was thrust right into spending time with my friend Brad, and understanding the joy of life, even as it's moving out, is such an important part of our teaching. So can you balance better in this whole month of joy? If joy is what it's about, can you balance your life better in order to accentuate the joy in your life, regardless of what's going on? Can you balance the truth you know, and everyone here knows the truth, that right where you are, God is, everything's available. Can you balance that with the things that pop up that don't feel good? Because what happens way too often is we collapse onto our knees and we think it's separate from us. And it's not. It is who we are. And until we stand up and lock ourselves into that truth, we are not going to understand that. We cannot understand it from groveling on our knees, feeling separate. But we can understand it when we stand up into the highest level of consciousness and understand it that way and see it. I want to close with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "We will be more successful in all our endeavors if we can let go of the habit of running all the time and take little pauses to relax and recenter ourselves. Because then we'll also have a lot more joy in the living." So as this month concludes, I invite you to stop running so much. Stop working so hard to become what you already are. Stop spending your life on your knees, praying to a God that doesn't exist. Understand that God is everything. Most importantly, your powerful mind. So stand up, speak the truth, lock into the truth, know what is yours, and take, as Ernest Holmes says, take what is yours in consciousness, and then live from that place of joy. Because let's face it, our only purpose on life is to enjoy it. So enjoy it. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.